Welcome to the Stop Ruining My Childhood podcast.
A sometimes nostalgic, sometimes cynical look back at pop culture.
Hey, join us as we revisit movies, cartoons, and live-action TV of the 80s and 90s and ask the question...
Does this hold up, or did I just ruin my childhood?
Hey, my name's Megan.
And I'm Steve.
And today, we are doing Silver Spoons.
Silver Spoons, the sitcom from the early to mid 1980s.
Yep.
And
starring Ricky or Rick Schroder, depending on how old you are.
Right. At this time, he's still Ricky.
He's still Ricky, yeah.
He hasn't hit his NYPD Blues Rick Schroder phase.
I'll be honest, Steve, he's always going to be Ricky Schroder in my brain. At any rate, we were going to do the Thanksgiving episode, but of course we're doing this a little bit later, so we decided to do the Christmas episode. From the first season, the best Christmas ever. And you can find it on YouTube, and we're also, because it was on YouTube, we're going to post it on our Facebook.
Yeah. But before we get there, we have our non-sponsored snack review.
All right, now I'm going to be honest with you guys. This originally, a while back, we were going to do Princess Bride, and it kind of didn't fit anywhere, just in our schedule, because we had fan requests.
Right.
And we bumped it for some fan requests.
That's true.
So we're going to do it next season.
Season 2, Princess Bride.
Princess Bride. But I had Ring Pop picked out. And then I thought silver spoons, wealthy, money, jewelry... Ring Pop.
Okay.
The thing is, I'm going to be honest with you guys, neither Steve nor I is really excited about this because, number one, I bought this candy in the summer and I opened it up and it is a little bit melted. Look.
Yes, it is.
Secondly, I thought it was strawberry, but it's cherry, which Steve doesn't care for, and it's sour, which I don't care for. But look, you could propose all over again.
Yeah, I could propose to you with a red ring.
Do you remember the ads for these where
I do not.
The little kid would like propose? I always wanted somebody to do that.
That wasn't these, that was Lifesavers.
No, it was
He
these.
would be like, I got you a ring, and they were Lifesavers.
No, and then she was like, Ring Pop!
Oh, Lifesavers used to do one where little kid would be like, I got you a ring, and he'd give her a lifesaver. And she'd be like, oh, and then he'd be like, we can live with my mom. Oh. And they were like 6. You don't remember that commercial?
No, I don't.
It was awesome.
I just remember people proposing and then they opened it up and they were excited to see Ring Pop. Steve, if you had proposed to me and there was a Ring Pop, I would have laughed so hard.
Well, I could take your ring back.
No, I don't want my ring taken back, but I would have thought that was really funny. All right. Okay. It's not, all right. It's not as sour as I thought it was going to be.
All right, so I'm going to taste it. You tell us a little bit about Ring Pops.
Oh my gosh, I'm very excited. Okay, so here's the thing about Ring Pops. They came out in 1980, but we're going to take it back, Steve. All right? We're going to go in the Wayback Machine. The year was 1890. Mm-hmm. The American Leaf Tobacco Company imported tobacco to the U.S. and sold it to other tobacco companies. And eventually, out of this company came Topps. T-O-P-P-S.
Okay, so the Topps, the baseball card company.
Known for baseball cards, exactly. So Topps itself, technically founded in 1938, but it traces its roots back to American Leaf Tobacco. So, basically, American Leaf Tobacco during World War I was cut off from Turkish supplies of tobacco. And then the Depression hit. And so the company had to rethink things, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to be tops in their field.
Ah.
And so they started to do chewing gum because the produce thought about produce. They thought about a couple of different things. None of those worked, so they decided to do gum. And I did not know that Topps did bazooka bubble gum.
But they would roll them flat as a stick and put them in with the baseball cards.
So you used to have gums like bazooka was done in a small comic book. Remember, it came with like a little comic.
With a little comic wrapped around. Yep.
And then they started doing trading cards featuring like Western characters like Hopalong Cassidy. And then in 1951, that's when they had the first baseball card set. Apparently, 1951, 1952. Having said that, so at that point, they do these collectibles, they do baseball cards, they're still doing the chewing gum, they decide to do some candy. And eventually, in 1980, they had these fruit-flavored lollipops from their bazooka part of their company, does the candy. And it has, if you haven't seen it, it's got a little plastic ring that you can wear. And then it's like a lollipop on top. But basically, the history of this is kind of funny. They were invented in the late 70s. Frank Richards was a product engineer for the Topps company, and his daughter kept sucking her thumb. And he was like, she's too old for a pacifier, but I want to stop this thumb sucking stuff. What if there was a candy that she could suck on instead?
It looks kind of like a pacifier.
It does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is basically where they came up with Ring Pop. So the jewel is made out of hard candy like a lollipop. The plastic disc can go around a kid's finger, not mine, because my fingers.
It doesn't fit my fingers. Maybe my pinky.
And sucking on the candy instead of sucking your thumb. But as we know, Steve, even though this fully launched in 1980, it was not the first wearable candy, because we covered candy necklaces and the candy bracelet.
That's true.
And those were released in 1958.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a lollipop without a stick with a ring of flavor you can lick. That was the theme. That was the theme song. The words of the theme song.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a scene with two children, a boy and a girl, where the little boy is proposing to the girl with a ring pop, and that basically became their staple for their history. And now Ring Pop, before it was just cherry and grape, but now there's blue raspberry, strawberry, watermelon, lime. Yeah, water lemon. I transposed my letters. Watermelon, lime, apple, and sour green, sour cherry berry, which is the one we have. You know, different variations like that. And they also, in 2011... Ring Pop encrusted with Swarovski crystals and colored with Maverick Blue for the Dallas Mavericks for their winning of the 2011 NBA Finals. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know why that happened. And, fun fact, if you are Jewish and you keep kosher, this is one of the few kosher candies.
Interesting.
So you could have it for Hanukkah, presumably. Yeah. So those are some fun facts about Ring Pop. I used to like these. I always thought the commercials were really cute.
So I'm split in a few different ways.
It's not a fast candy.
Yes. It's not a fast candy, which you know. I don't like things that I have to lick for a long time.
That's what she said. I would have to bleep that.
I don't like things that I have to lick for a long time.
Yeah.
Or wait for. But, that being said, I do like that you can kind of play with it because it has the ring.
So it has the fun factor.
So that sort of helps me be a little patient. Mm-hmm. And the taste, you did get cherry, which normally I really dislike fake cherry.
Yeah, it has a good flavor.
I like real cherries, like fresh cherries. I don't like fake cherry flavoring. But this tastes more like cherry Kool-Aid. Yeah, it really does. That's instead of like chemically cherry.
Well,
and so
okay,
I know, but there's a difference.
All right, okay.
And so I don't dislike this that much. It actually reminds me of Kool-Aid.
Okay.
So yeah, so because of that, there's some ups and downs with the Ring Pop.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put it in. We're gonna do spoons.
Okay, for silver spoons.
It's a
little on the nose, but that's all right.
I know. So I'm going to give it 3.5 spoons out of 5.
Oh, that's You're going to go 3.5?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a 4. I really like it. I mean, my favorite, I'm not a big fruit candy person. I really like chocolate more. But for a fruit candy, I quite enjoy it. And I do like the fun fact. I mean, it kind of could fit on my finger maybe a little bit, like a pinky finger. Mm-hmm. And if I weren't worried about my teeth, I would. I would chow down on it. Yeah, I really liked it. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, despite the fact it's slightly melted.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. 3 3/4 spoon out of 5.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. 3 3/4 spoons for the ring pop.
That's not bad.
No, it's not too bad. All right, so Steve, let's get into silver spoons.
Okay, so
she can't get at it.
The premise of Silver Spoons is that Ricky has come to live with his dad, Edward. Edward is very rich. He's very wealthy. He runs a toy company. Mm-hmm. It is Edward Stratton.
Yes.
The third. Well, his son Ricky Stratton comes to live with him. Ricky is a product of a marriage a number of years earlier. Edward was married once before, briefly, and he was unaware that Ricky existed.
Okay.
Right, until right as the show starts.
Oh, okay.
And so Ricky comes to live with him, and Ricky, of course, is not used to, being rich. So we get to see kind of the luxury and lavishness of Edward's lifestyle kind of through Ricky's eyes.
Yeah, and also that Ricky is supposed to be a little more serious, right? And right. Edward is supposed to be more like a child.
Yeah, Edward is like a playboy, kind of.
Right.
Right, he has this girlfriend, Kate, who...
is also his secretary.
Is kind of his secretary, but it's his girlfriend. Also, he has, his lawyer... and later business manager around him, mm-hmm. Who are kind of play the straight man to Edward because he is kind of like a large kid. He's got a toy train that you can ride that goes through his house. He always has pinball machines and stuff in his home.
Yeah.
Because he's from a wealthy family and he's wealthy, but at the same time, he makes toys, right?
Right.
And so he's kind of like a kid at heart. And so we see the dynamic between Ricky and his dad, as well as Kate, who's kind of a mom figure in a little way. She's like a mom / caretaker a little bit for Ricky.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that kind of, it's almost a nanny, but not quite.
Yeah, kind of almost a good, like a best friend, babysitter almost, kind of, but it's interesting. And then in the early episodes, of course, we had mentioned before that his best friend in the early episodes is played by Jason Bateman.
Who we don't see in this one.
Who was not in this episode, even though it was first season. In later seasons, Jason Bateman leaves the show and they bring in Alfonso Riberio.
So a lot of people know Jason Bateman now from Arrested Development and Ozarks, but we'll get into it when we get into history. So should we just kind of transition into that? Just on that?
Yeah. Switch over.
So Jason Bateman has talked about this before, and I think really interestingly on Dax Shepard's podcast, that, and also Conan O'Brien's, that he had a pretty good name going for himself in Hollywood. He came off... He didn't talk about Little House on the Prairie, but he was an adopted kid in one of the later seasons of Little House. And then he did this, and then he went from this to Valerie, which was then renamed
The Hogan Family. Yep.
And then he did Teen Wolf 2, and that's kind of where it
Gotcha.
started. So the problem was that, this is what he said, that Dax Shepard was like, I always wanted to be you. I saw you on Silver Spoons, and I thought you were so cool. And I thought, I want to be an actor like that and have, people know who I am. And Jason Bateman was like, the thing is, to a certain point, when he became an older teenager, having people knew who he was a detriment.
Right, because they kind of typecast him,
yeah,
right?
And then he kind of had to rebuild his career, and now he's, done great directing and things like that. Alfonso Riberio, most people know from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Right. He played Carlton.
But I know him from the Food Network show
Unwrapped.
I mean, I know him obviously from Fresh Prince, but he's great on Unwrapped. I think he would have been great hosting Jeopardy. Like, he has that kind of personality. He just seems like just a nice guy who just wants to work and, and go home to his wife and have a nice plate of spaghetti or whatever,
Yep.
But we basically, it's interesting how this show started, because they kind of conceived of it at first. Did you ever see the movie Arthur?
Yes.
So it's like a rich playboy, but I mean, he's an alcoholic, but if you saw it as a kid, you might not know that.
Yeah, Arthur was sort of sad because he's a rich playboy, but he's an alcoholic. Yeah.
Yeah. But Dudley Moore is in that, and Liza Minnelli, who I didn't realize until I was an adult that she's like a prostitute in that movie, I think.
Yeah, kind of.
I didn't realize. But at any rate, they wanted kind of a series based on the hit film Arthur, but without the alcoholism. And as they were talking about this, it eventually morphed into this thing where Edward Stratton III is like a playboy, but they also were looking for a vehicle for Ricky Schroder because he was under contract to NBC. And I found this great set of articles where all of these people, all of these television critics were like, finally, they gave this kid a vehicle. Like, Ricky Schroder, Silver Spoon's shining star. They really believed in his talent, basically.
What had he been in earlier that he got contracted by NBC?
He did like some miniseries. Okay, first of all, he did the miniseries Little Lord Fauntleroy, which just makes me laugh so hard. And I have never seen that, but my mom used to tell me she wouldn't cut my hair. I wanted a bob haircut, and she said, no, you look like the Dutch Paint Boy or Little Lord Fauntleroy. I did not know
didn't know what that was.
That was.
She should have just said you look like Ricky Schroder.
She should have, yeah. And sometimes she said Prince Valiant, who I did know because they were in the Sunday comics.
Right.
But at any rate, it wasn't good. So he did Little Lord Fauntleroy, and I guess he got really noticed from that. And apparently, though, he had been starting out as a really young child star, like in diaper commercials and stuff. Before doing Silver Spoons, he had already done 4 movies, countless television appearances, 63 commercials. So he was working hard. Mm-hmm. And I think that, 63 commercials, that's crazy to me. That's just crazy. That's a lot of commercial work, and starting when you're in diapers, especially. So yeah, they just believed in him. They wanted a vehicle for him. So if you notice, Steve, when we saw the credits, when the credits go, he's listed first. And then the woman who plays Kate, and then the guy who plays Leonard, and then the guy who plays the dad.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting to me, the way that they did that, because a lot of times in the 80s, even if shows were kind of built around the kids, the parents would get the top billing because they're older. Yeah. And they're more established.
Is it just me, and I forgot that I felt this way? Mm-hmm. Until we just watched the episode of Silver Spoons. I used to watch Silver Spoons all the time as a kid. We'll get into that a little bit later, right? But Erin Gray, who plays Kate, the dad's girlfriend, is a knockout.
Yeah, and I remember. So,
but not like
we'll get into
not like a voom 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 kind of like sex pot knockout. She's just like down to earth, very pretty.
Well, I don't know if you ever saw this show, but right before this, she did Buck Rogers in the 25th.
That's where she was in Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that also formed my childhood, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, she was in that from 79 to 81.
And she was a little bit of a sex pot in that. She was probably really. She played younger. She played like a woman like fighter, but at the same time, yeah.
She's even beautiful now, to be honest. She's got gray hair, but she looks pretty much Yeah. I mean, for the fact that she was born in 1950. She's a beautiful lady.
Yes.
So we have Erin Gray, we have Ricky or Rick Schroder. On IMDb, he's still listed as Ricky. I guess the name change didn't take. And then we have Joel Higgins as Edward Stratton III. Now, here's what's interesting to me is that he had a really varied career. And he did like some indie films, he did Broadway, and he also wrote jingles.
Oh, okay.
Including after he did this show, he wrote jingles for Kool-Aid, for M&M's, and he did the theme song for a number of shows, not this one, but a number of other shows, including the reboot that Lucy tried to get going. Like I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
She tried to have she did a number of shows and she tried to and it didn't go very well, but he did the music for that. Okay. So it's just kind of interesting. It's just kind of interesting to me. But the show was co-created by somebody who also co-created a number of other shows. And that was Martin Cohen. So Martin Cohen is also known especially for Who's the Boss.
Oh, okay.
But they did a few other things as well. And he wrote for sitcoms before, creating and running them.
All right, so he kind of came up through the sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote for the Bob Newhart Show. He wrote for Mary Tyler Moore, The Odd Couple, All in the Family. So he had some chops, right? Also was a co-producer on Different Strokes. And then did this show and then Who's the Boss, which is probably more well-known than this show. But I just told a colleague we were doing this, and she was like, I loved that show as a kid. I think, kids really liked it. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something about it that just spoke to kids a lot.
I loved that it opened on the mansion that they had, which was hilarious. And now that mansion is actually in England.
Yeah.
It's in Warwickshire, England, which I thought was really interesting because it's a Tudor-style mansion that was built in 1481.
That's interesting. And
so
I'm glad you shared that fun fact.
That mansion was 500 years old when they used it for this.
Yeah.
Which is kind of neat.
Which also gives it that grand feel, though, that they're going for. And you can find some houses like that in the U.S., but not many, and certainly not many where they'd allow you to film on the property to at least get the outside shots, right?
Yeah, the outside shots, yep.
So the other, one of the other co-producers and co-creators was Howard Leeds. He had worked on the Brady Bunch and did television series for Norman Lear, and he also co-created The Facts of Life and the show we watched last time, Small Wonder.
Okay, well, they're not all winners, you know.
Listen, they can't all be hit. Actually, Small Wonder didn't do that badly. It's just not a great show.
They can't all be 10s, you know.
That's true. And then we also have Ben Starr, who was a playwright, and he also developed The Facts of Life. And Our Man Flint, a show that I don't remember. So.
I'm going to say this. Howard Leeds might have been connected to Small Wonder, but at least he had nothing to do with Star Wars Holiday Special.
That's true, Steve. That's a good point. And the third guy I just mentioned, Ben Starr, he came up through Hollywood as well, writing. He wrote for Dobie Gillis, The Andy Griffith Show, Maude, Petticoat Junction, Mr. Ed, and then, of course, developed Facts of Life and Silver Spoons. So my point here is there was a lot of power behind this show.
Yeah, those three guys in particular had a lot of experience.
A lot of experience with writing. You would have thought that Small Wonder would be better. But, a lot of experience with writing. So when we come back, we're going to talk about our memories of the show, or lack thereof, or very fuzzy memories. And then we'll get into our full review and recap. All right. Glad you didn't change the station in the 10 seconds of music that I just played.
That's true.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Steve.
We just like to remind you who we are, in case this is your first time listening to us.
An episode 48?
Yeah. Well, people pick it up every week.
That's true.
Every week we get new listeners. Oh, also, Steve, before we get into our memories, I want to say that at the time of this, as this is coming out, we have hit 15,000 downloads.
Awesome.
That's amazing because initially when first of all, our first 4 episodes had like 5 hits.
5 or 6
5
downloads.
or 6 downloads per episode. And then we picked up steam, and based on our initial numbers, I thought we would maybe hit 8,000 by Christmas. So we've kind of like almost doubled what I thought we would have.
I look back at those early episodes and I'm like, it's a whole different person.
It is
we were
totally
so
different.
amateurish,
I
and
know.
now I'm a star.
Yeah. Really?
A star is born.
I mean, we didn't have a format at that point. That's the only thing. And we didn't... Steve just ran his finger down my nose. Like I'm Lady Gaga in A Star is Born. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Okay, so what are your memories of Silver Spoons?
All right, so I watched this quite a bit as a kid. And now that I think about it, I thought I was like, oh, I watched this for like, a long time, and I watched it probably as it came out, and I did not. Because it was on from 82 to 86.
Yeah.
It was on 5 seasons. The last season it was in full syndication.
So I was going to say that too. I forgot to mention that in the fun facts.
There's 116 episodes.
Yeah.
I watched it, but I watched it fairly religiously on weeknights. It was on like 6 or 6:30, like dinner time.
So you think you saw it in
So
reruns?
it was in syndication.
Yeah.
It might have been that 5th season.
The
like
5th
1986, I would have been 9.
So just to explain, the 5th season, they did first run syndication.
Yes.
Which they had also done with Small Wonder around that same time or just before. Meaning that the network dropped it. They believed in the show enough, and enough affiliates said, yes, we'll buy it from you.
And take
so
the 5th season.
The 5th season was in full syndication right off the bat.
But by the third season, NBC, who owned it, was already putting it. They were already showing the earlier seasons on rerun,
that
basically.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure I saw it in maybe not syndication, but at least rerun, because they were doing it like. I think what they would do is they would show it during the weekdays, and then it was a weekend show. Its first 2 seasons, Silver Spoon was on Saturday night.
Yep.
And then seasons 3, 4, 5, seasons 3 and 4, it was on Sunday. 5, as we said, was in syndication, so it depended on what network it was on.
Right. Yeah, I remember watching it Saturdays, but I was really, really young when it came out. So again, I think it's very vague. So it's really fuzzy for me.
Yeah.
I remembered that they were rich. I remembered that I thought the train was cool. I remember the song.
Well, you would have only been 3 on the first season.
Yeah, but
so
by the
no
time it was 87,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have remembered by then, 86, 87. But yeah, even so, I don't know then, because by the time I would have been old enough to remember, it was in syndication. That's my point. So I don't really remember it too well, and I don't remember it watching like all that often or being obsessed with it or anything like that. I think probably too. This is very telling. There are other it's a boy show. It's starring a boy, not a girl.
Right.
But also, this boy in particular, not my type. Even then. So, I wouldn't have been interested in really watching it as much.
Ricky Schroder was not a heartthrob for you?
No, I'm not. This is going to sound so bad. I should edit this out. I'm not into blondes. I don't.
Wow.
I've never dated a blonde guy. I kissed a blonde guy one time. One blonde guy I kissed.
Now things are getting steamy talk.
Yeah.
I'm an equal opportunity dater.
Yeah, okay. Not now, because it's just Megan.
Yeah, now I married a redhead, but
That's
before
right.
that was a mistake.
No, Ricky Schroder he's just not my type. He's like he's just not my type. I like burly, manly men like you.
Okay.
That's it.
Well,
with full beard.
One of the things,
at 7.
one of the things that my memories that I liked about this show, even as a kid.
Yeah.
And like I said, I would have been young, 9, 10, maybe 11. But the cast has really good chemistry.
Yeah, they really do.
Joel Higgins as Edward the dad, Erin Gray. The two of them have very good chemistry.
Yeah.
Like as boyfriend-girlfriend kind of thing. But also, both of them have good chemistry with Ricky Schroder.
Yeah, and he actually is, for a kid actor, he can carry it.
Yes.
And I think that that's probably one of the reasons they wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
Because he does have the presence. It's not just acting chops, because there are kids that can act, but they don't always have the presence to carry the room, and he's in pretty much every scene.
But unlike Small Wonder, where the kids kind of had to carry it, because the parents were not great actors, and even the kids were not strong, but that's kind of how they were setting up and writing it.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, Ricky is the main character, kind of, because you're meant to see things through his eyes a little bit.
Yep.
But it's really a trinity. Joel Higgins and Erin Gray carry just as much the load, I think. And they're very... Erin Gray, as we mentioned before, had already acted in things. She was used to being in numerous seasons of Buck Rogers, where Buck Rogers is the character that the show's named after. He's the main guy, but again, she carries and supports quite a bit in that show.
Yeah, and my memory of Erin Gray, and then we can get into our full thing, right? My memory of Erin Gray is I remembered that she was on the show, but I really remembered her as being the one who did it in an episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Oh.
Because, I'll tell you why. So, you would tape things off of TV, and we had this tape called Kids Christmas Shows. So it does tie into Christmas. That's why I bring it up.
Okay.
So it had Muppet Family Christmas on it, and then, all the Rankin Bass, and, it was like an 8-hour tape that we had compiled. But before Muppet Family Christmas, the beginning of the tape was the last 6 minutes of Murder, She Wrote, where it's revealed that Erin Gray is the murderess, and why she did it, and she stole a tiara, and her boss caught her, and she accidentally killed him while trying to get the tiara out of his hands. And so we would watch this every year before the kids. And I don't know why we didn't just fast forward it, but it was part of the whole thing. When you watch something like that, eventually you want to see the commercials and the, you know what I mean? And so that's weirdly where I know her from. But yeah, so let's talk about this, because I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, actually.
Okay.
So we open with the opening theme song.
Yep, this is The Best Christmas Ever is the name of the episode, as you mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Right. It's from 1982, the first season. We open up with the theme song, and then it starts. Our opening scene is Ricky and Kate decorating for Christmas. Yeah,
and just to give you guys a little bit of background, they changed some characters in the second season of this show. We went and watched the opening thing of a different season, and it's the same thing, just with that part taken out. They didn't even reshoot a new opening, which I just find funny.
You know what it reminded me of?
Yeah?
Was the opening to, what was that camp show you used to like?
Yeah, that's what I thought, too.
That we did.
Yeah, we did Camp Anawanda.
Camp Anawanda.
Yeah.
And that...
Salute Your Shorts.
Salute Your Shorts. Remember, they had some cast changes, and they shot it almost shot for shot, but just replaced the people.
Yeah, they did. Except what was funny is that they redid it, but it was shot for shot, but the one person who was off key was still off key.
Yes.
And they were trying.
Yeah.
They weren't off key on purpose. But yeah, that's kind of funny. So they're trimming the Christmas tree. Now, here's my first issue with this show. And this is not the only show that's done this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I never understand why in TV and movies people are putting up their Christmas decorations on Christmas.
Yeah, I don't get that either. We never did that. We always put it up at least 2 weeks, sometimes more, so you can enjoy the stuff, because you don't leave it up a lot after Christmas.
Now, we don't, because we have company here.
Yeah.
But growing up, Friday after Thanksgiving,
Like Black Friday?
The pilgrims come down and
Really?
Santa comes up.
You guys don't play games,
No,
huh?
we don't play. Well, because, okay, so as Lutherans, so I grew up Lutheran, Advent.
That's tragic.
Stop it. Lutherans are full of grace and Garrison Keillor jokes and good casseroles. But at any rate, the Advent is like a 30-day thing.
Right.
So Advent really starts quite quickly, and we would have an Advent wreath. We did devotionals, and we would put out the manger scene, the creche.
Yep.
But I would hide baby Jesus sometimes, and I would put the wise men really far away, and then each day I would move them closer. And I want to be clear that this is not something that my mom did. This was Megan, like, hey, we have to do this the right way. Nobody's in the manger yet. Like, come on, the shepherds can be there.
They didn't get to be in the manger until, like, the day before Christmas?
I think I gave up probably before then. Or my mom was like, why are all my figurines all over the living room? But I had them on a slow march toward Nazareth. Just like in the real story. Anyway, I don't get that part. But at any rate, they have a few good gags here. Mm-hmm. They're talking about how it's Ricky's first Christmas with his dad, because they've just been reunited, and Kate says, yeah, he's just a little excited, and Ricky's like, really? And then she brings out this huge stocking.
The stocking says Ricky is like bigger than him.
Yeah, it's like 6 feet tall, and that was kind of a nice sight gag. I don't know if this was filmed before a live studio audience or not.
I tried to look it up. I didn't come up with an answer.
Okay. The other thing about this show, it drove me crazy that if it's the audience or a laugh track, I don't know.
Too much? Or
It's way too much.
That was an 80s thing, though, too.
Yeah.
What I'll say is that I like this first scene. Ricky also tells her about the pen he got his dad, which has a clock on it. It has a microphone recorder. It has, like, a bunch of all these things that this pen does. It's like digital. It's like the best pen in the world.
It's like a smartphone.
Yeah, and then she was like, does it write? And he was like, and he just blank stares and he goes, I didn't check. And she's like, I'm sure it does.
So while you were explaining, I just looked it up, and there's a guy in a forum saying that on a school, they had a school field trip, lived in California. They had a school field trip to watch a taping of Silver Spoons.
So it was in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah, I guess.
Interesting.
They must. So I've been to a live studio audience show before. I went to see the Drew Carey show right before. I mean, that was one of the last ones that had this format. Yes. And they do have a warm-up guy first, but they also have signs for you to clap or laugh or whatever. I mean, you're supposed to kind of do it naturally, but they do have a sign to prompt you.
Right.
And that's very clear in this episode because the clapping is excessive.
Yeah.
But yeah, the candied oysters from the grandpa.
Yeah, his grandpa sent a basket, and of course his grandfather's in some other episodes. His grandfather, unlike the dad, is really stuffy and sort of like, representative of old money.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, that's the name of the show, right? Born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
And so he was like, grandfather sent a card, and it was like, best wishes, Richard, grandfather. And then he sends a basket of, like, fruit and crackers and, like, candied oysters.
Yeah, which I just think is hilarious. And then she says something like, well, last year it was chocolate-covered snails. And you're like, oh gosh.
So it's a great little intro there to that whole situation.
Then we have the entrance of Joey.
Yes, we have a knock on the door. And that's important because the door knocks. Ricky goes to answer, and I had forgotten this, but they have a remote-controlled door.
They also have a special doorbell that plays a song, which was unusual at the time.
But they have it looks like a TV remote control that he grabs and clicks it, and it opens their front door for him, which now I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's an interesting gag. But I remember as a kid thinking that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Okay, now, I want to say, Joey Lawrence is playing Joey in this, okay?
He's got to be like 6.
He also played Joey in Call Me Kat. He played Joe in Melissa and Joey. He played Joe in Brotherly Love. And he played Joey in Blossom.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a long range. He just, it's easier just to call him by his normal name.
I know, they just were like, what should we call him? Yeah, Joey's fine.
I mean, they call Ricky Schroder Ricky, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Is this a thing where they felt like it was easier for kid actors just to call him by their regular name?
Maybe. I don't know. I just find that hilarious. But he's like maybe about 6 here.
He's at the most.
At the most, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for odd jobs to make some money."
Yeah, to get his mom a Christmas present.
Yeah, which is so sad.
Which is kind of sad. It like reminds me of the Christmas Shoes song.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that song.
I know, and it just made me sad.
It's my most unfavorite Christmas song.
It's interesting because Ricky does not react to him like kind of like as a jerk or as some kids might. We've seen other 80s and 90s sitcoms where the kids have been kind of jerks.
Yeah.
And he doesn't react that way, which I really like.
No, he acts like he's a little bit older than this kid, and the kid calls him Mister, and he's okay with that. But I really like that too, and I think, again, to compare it to Small Wonder, because, we just watched that a couple weeks ago, those kids were talking smart alecky and mean all the time.
Yeah.
And here we have a kid who's genuinely just nice. He's just a nice kid. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jason Bateman plays like the foil to that.
Okay,
I think
he's kind of the sarcastic,
the spoiled rich kid. But again, Ricky's not supposed to have grown up with this money. He just kind of came into it. So, my only one line that I hated, the kid is like, "Whoa, is this the White House?" And Ricky's like, "No, I live here. Come on in. It's cold out there." And Joey goes, "You ain't just whistling Dixie, mister." I'm like...
Is Joey a 6-year-old who was born in the 30s?
I know, right? What is that? Again, like, that's not how kids talk. That was the only line that stuck out, though, which is good.
Yeah.
But, I just thought that was funny.
So, he wants to do a job for $1. Ricky's like, "I don't really have any jobs, but you can help me hang ornaments." So he hangs an ornament, and then Ricky gives him a $20 bill that his grandfather had sent him for Christmas.
Yeah, because he doesn't need the 20.
No,
right?
and it's a good thought. It was very selfless of him.
Yep, and he tells the kid to go and get his mom something nice for Christmas. Then the audience laughs at everything the kid says.
The kid leaves.
And he says, "I just imagined what would Derek do in this situation." I think that's the Jason Bateman character.
Right.
And did the opposite. Then Edward comes in, and you can see the childlike demeanor that they're trying to build with him, right?
Yeah, Edward comes in singing carols.
Yeah. And then his assistant?
His lawyer, Len.
Oh, okay. So I was like, butler, question mark?
No, it's his lawyer.
Assistant, he's playing the drums for a little bit. And he's like, "Come on, Len, loosen up." And then Len starts singing, "I got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow." And that's not a Christmas song.
No.
Also, it was weird.
Yeah.
The way that they had him do that, to me, I don't know. It seemed a little racist. Like, it was like...
I got that feeling, too.
Like he was pantomiming.
He was almost pantomiming like a 40s jazz singer.
Yeah.
But maybe it was different in the 80s. Maybe
I don't know. And also, it's not like... If Edward had been pantomiming, I would have been like, wow, that's really racist. I guess it's just the way that it was set up, and that it seems like he's trying to, like, snap to it, do it this guy. I don't know.
Right.
That made me... it was an uncomfortable moment. But then they kind of moved past that, and we're back into the Christmas spirit. We're lighting the tree, which is like a big event. Kate and Leonard gave each other fruitcakes.
Yeah, Kate and Leonard gave each other fruitcakes, which I guess is a gag even in the 80s.
But I love that detail.
Yeah.
I miss fruitcake. I love fruitcake.
Edward mentions to Kate that he's excited that he got Ricky, like, a remote control dune buggy.
Okay, now, What did you picture when he said
I
that?
thought it was like a go-kart that they could ride in.
Like, remember when we saw what we watched?
Because he doesn't say remote control. I added that.
Yeah. Remember when we watched the A-Team and they were in the dune buggies?
Yes.
I thought it was going to be like that.
I did too, and I wouldn't have thought that normally, but because they're rich and they have all this luxury,
right.
I assumed he bought him that.
Yeah.
But it come to find out it is a remote control car, but still, it's kind of neat.
Also, it hasn't come up yet that he owns a toy factory, and I did the research after we watched the show, so my notes are like strain of consciousness. Motorized dune buggy, that sounds awesome. How'd this guy get his money? Why does he have so much money? Was he just born into it? Like, it's like all these questions I had. I love, too, that the train that goes from the living room to the outside that he rides on because he's such a child.
Yes.
It's all decked out for Christmas.
Yeah.
I love it.
There's a few things, too. You know, Kate is not staying with them. She's going home to Ohio. Mm-hmm. Sandusky.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure. I thought that they had like a will they, won't they thing going on. But they're full on.
They're full on together.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't recall the pilot and stuff, but I think they were either will they, won't they for maybe just a few episodes, or when Ricky comes into the situation, he has a girlfriend already.
Okay.
Right? Which makes things weirder, too, because he's like, oh, this is my son. Right?
Right.
But, yeah, so this is the thing. Like, she has to go, so she says goodbye to everybody. There's lots of kissing between Kate and Edward.
Listen, they have an appropriate amount of mistletoe.
There's like 3 or 4 mistletoes on the way out the door.
We should have that much mistletoe at our house.
There's a lot of kissing. And normally I'm like, this is awkward and I don't care for this. But
they have great chemistry.
They have good chemistry. Mm-hmm. Edward is likable. Mm-hmm. And Kate is a smoke show. So I was like, okay. I'm going to allow it.
Well, also, they're doing it in a funny way.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, mistletoe.
But it wasn't like, but the kiss was legit. It wasn't like an awkward kiss.
They went for it big time. These two are not holding anything back. In my notes, I put, ooh la la. I guess they're together.
Yeah.
So yeah, Len and Edward ride out on the Christmas-themed train. Ricky goes to take some presents away. And then everybody's silent in the studio audience because Joey comes back in. But he has the 20 with him. And he leaves the 20, but he does take the basket of weird food.
Now, I wasn't sure about this. At first, I'm like, oh, he's a grifter. Mm-mm. Like, he came in asking for the money for his mom.
Yeah.
And he was casing the joint.
Well,
so now he's coming in to rob them, is what I thought initially.
I thought initially that he was an orphan child. But I was like, if this were season 5, I would have bought that more. Because that's when they start doing crazy, like, let's adopt another kid. Yeah, he was an orphan and he's out on the street. So the kid takes the food. This is the part I will say, too. The dialogue was pretty good. I had some laughs here and there. Like, even though it's from the 80s. Mm-hmm. I thought the dialogue held up pretty well. Other than that one line I mentioned. But we go, and Ricky follows him into a cave.
He takes the food back to a cave. First, where his mom and dad and him are living in a cave.
It's snowing, but they have a blanket. I'm sorry. I know that there are
this
probably...
This is sad, Megan, and you're laughing at it.
Because it's the fakest looking cave. That's why I'm laughing. And they have like a yellow blanket for a door and fake wind, and it just looks silly. It just looks silly.
But they have like a table and chairs in the cave?
Yeah, which is hilarious.
And like a couch or like a chair?
Yeah. They have like a lazy boy chair in the middle of this cave.
Yeah.
And a rug. And then he comes in, and the mom goes, don't forget to tap your shoes off. Tap the dirt off your shoes. And the dad goes, yeah, we want to get the floor of this nice cave, Bessie.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
You're like, what's going on? And you find out through dialogue that the dad was laid off from a factory job, and they lost their house to the bank, so they're living in this cave.
Well, because they were on their way to Denver, but then the truck...
Right, truck broke down near the cave, so they just moved in because of the winter.
He lost his job, the banks took their house, the truck broke down, and now they're kind of stuck. And also, I will say, well, first I was surprised that the parents were still alive, because I really did think this kid might be an orphan. Second, though, the steel mill, I mean, that did happen.
Yeah.
There a lot of industrial jobs moved out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of people were put out of work or had to find different types of work, you know, that kind of thing. They're trying to get to church for Christmas.
Yeah, they head out of the cave. Ricky leaves because they're leaving. And this is, now, I'm biased because I am a pastor, okay? But if you're living in a cave, don't feel pressured to go to church.
But they want to go to church. It's Christmas.
I know, and I liked that, but at the same time, I'm like, well, it's probably warmer than being in the church, than being in the cave. But they leave, so they come back from church.
Yeah.
To find Ricky has set up. He's taken the Christmas tree from his house and set it up for them. And
we should explain that the kid was asking about Santa Claus.
Yeah, and the dad said, well, we didn't get to leave Santa a new address, so he probably isn't coming for you this year.
So sad.
So sad. This was such a... I thought this was going to be a sitcom and make me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Which, it had some funny pieces, but it was really sad.
And then you learned a lesson, which is a very 80s
sitcom thing. It was really sad.
Yeah. Well, we didn't watch the Bicycle Man episode of Different Strokes. Just be happy for that.
Yeah, that's true.
So, at any rate, was it Different Strokes? Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. At any rate, Ricky was overhearing what was going on, and now here is also, somehow he turns on the lights.
Yeah, he ran electricity, into the cave.
The whole thing lights up. There's trees and lights and garland and all this stuff. And the little kid says, oh, I should call you Santa Claus because that's who you are as far as I'm concerned. And Ricky's like, I'm not Santa Claus, but I sent him a telegram and maybe he could get here on time. And then Edward comes in dressed as Santa Claus. Yeah. And you realize he's told his dad the whole thing.
Yeah, and they give their
sweet
presents to the family.
Yeah, so the kid, this line did make me laugh. The kid was like, Santa goes, have you been a good boy this year? And he goes, oh, yeah, Santa, I have. Except for that time I shaved the neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
Which is such a 6-year-old boy thing to do in the 1980s especially.
And I noticed when he says this, he's missing a tooth.
Yeah, he's so cute.
So he's definitely in that age group, that age of when they're baby
teeth.
He
was. I think he was born in 76, Joey Lawrence. I think he's a couple years.
So he would be 6,
Yeah, so he'd be 6. So, Joey gets the dune buggy, which is basically a remote control car. Little electric remote control car. Jack gets the pen with the computer game on it, and it reads him the time out loud. Yep. Again, this is like a smartwatch or something. It's like kind of advanced. Yeah. It's supposed to be like, what could money buy, you know? And then the wife, they have this little running gag where the kid goes, oh my gosh, I always wanted one of these. And Ricky goes,
so did I.
So did I. And then they give the pen to the dad, and Edward goes, he says, oh, this is the coolest thing. I always wanted something like this. And Edward says, so did I.
Yeah.
And then the wife opens up the thing, and Edward thought it was a spice rack, but instead it was the negligee that Kate was supposed to get.
Yeah, he mixed up the gifts to go to Kate, and it's like lingerie.
And the wife goes, oh my gosh, the beautiful negligee. I always wanted one of these. And her husband goes,
so did I.
Which is such a good joke. It was a good joke because honestly, it was a little bit sexy, but still appropriate for the family type of show that this is. Yeah. You know?
And Edward goes to Ricky, somewhere in Ohio, Kate's opening up a spice rack. Yeah. And Ricky says, you really blew it, Santa.
Also, the negligee, I should say, looks like a nightgown from, like, the 1930s. It's not...
It's sheer, though.
It's sheer, but a lot of those they had layers. Yeah. My point is, it's not like a Fredericks of Hollywood 1980s,
it's not like... Yeah, it's not like...
Bustier. Yeah, it's not that kind of thing. So they all have gifts, and then the dad comes up to Edward and goes, my first instinct was to throw you out of here. What? Why? Get
Megan,
the heck out of here, Santa.
Megan, if you come home from church on Christmas Eve and some stranger is in your cave dressed as Santa...
But he's putting presents. It's a reverse theft.
But one of the other things I liked about this is it was mentioned earlier too when we first see the family in the cave is the dad doesn't want charity.
Yeah, he doesn't want handouts.
He's not looking for handouts. He doesn't want, and so that's kind of why he's just like, I appreciate it and thank you, but I'll pay you back for this stuff.
Because I think that this is the case with a lot of people. You fall on hard times.
Right.
But you don't think of yourself as the type of person who's going to take advantage of the system and be a taker. You want to just get back on your feet. Right. And the thing is, honestly, sometimes take the chair. That's what it's for. Yeah. Like, take it if you need it. That's what it's for. Take the help. And Edward says, oh, you're out of a job. Well, that's good to know because I could use a guy like you I own a toy factory. What do you do again? Yeah. And the guy was a foreman at the steel plant. So he says, if you see one of the men playing with a toy, what would you do? And they're on the job and they're on a assembly line. What do you do? And the dad says, tell me to wait till break time. Which for Edward is the perfect answer. Right. Because he doesn't want you telling them not to play.
Play with the toys, right.
But just wait until it's not work and then you can play. So Ricky and his dad have an aside. Ricky says, the pen was supposed to be for you. Yeah, we know, Ricky.
And Edward says, the Doom Buggy was supposed to be for you.
And then they go, I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah.
This is the best Christmas ever. And then the audience goes, aww. Then the credits roll. Then we stop the credits. And
the mom starts to sing Silent Night.
I can't deal with it. I hate it when... Silent Night. It's not that I don't like that song, because I do like that song. I just think that it's used in a cheesy way in movies and TV shows like this. And it's also... It's not the meaning of the song, which annoys me. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. I also think, I don't know, maybe invite him back to your house where it's warmer to sleep. You're going to let them sleep in this cave with their car? I know you did a lot for them, but I'm just saying, it is cold and barren in this cave.
Yes.
But quiet. So how did people receive, not obviously just the Christmas special, but how did people receive the show?
As we mentioned before, they went on for 5 seasons, right? Uh-huh. So it was pretty well. There's 116 episodes, so it was pretty well received as far as that goes. We mentioned, too, Ricky Schroder got a lot of publicity. He was in magazines, kids, teen stuff, right, for this.
He was like a preteen.
Yeah, he also started the show around 10 or 11 and then ended it, in his teens.
Right.
Right? But there was a number of awards that this show got.
Did he win a Young Acting?
Well, I was going to go through. In 1986, they won a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lighting Direction.
Huh, okay.
In 1987, they got a Young Artist Award nominee.
Oh, okay,
for Alfonso Riberio.
Oh, interesting.
Then in 1986, they got Young Artist Award Best Young Actress. Mm-hmm. Guest star. So one of the guests got an award nominee. Alfonso Ribeiro was nominated again for Young Artist.
Interesting.
So there was quite a bit of that. Corky Pigeon.
That sounds like a band.
Was also got a Young Artist Award. Won it for 1985.
Okay.
So there was quite a bit of awards connected with that. A lot of guest stars that got awards as well, or nominated at least. So Ricky Schroder won a Young Artist Award in 1984. Jason Bateman was nominated for one.
Okay.
So that was so that was good as well. Young Artist Award for Best New Family Television Series in 1983. As well as Ricky Schroder won another Young Artist Award in 1983 as well, and Jason Bateman was again nominated.
Okay.
So they really racked up some awards, some nominations that all went to them for the Emmys and Young Artist Awards. So it really was received fairly well. Interestingly enough, and I don't know if it's because of the age of the show, but there's not enough reviews on Rotten Tomatoes to have a score.
Probably because the age, but also, like, originally we were going to watch the Thanksgiving
It's not
episodes.
Streaming except for YouTube.
It was
right?
on Tubi for a bit, and then it wasn't, and then it was like on, like, it's moved around, and I don't know if that's because of the weird syndication bit, but initially it was an NBC show, and it's not on Peacock. And let me tell you, I looked through Peacock's shows.
Yeah.
I looked through Peacock's shows today, and almost any show you could ever think of, including stinkers that were only on for like half a season, are on Peacock. So
Right.
I'm not sure what the deal is. It could be, a lot of times it's stuff like music, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. But yeah, the Young Artist Awards, and I also, for Ricky Schroder, besides winning it for this show in 1982 and 83, he also had a Golden Globe for New Star of the Year. For the Champ, which I guess is a movie that he was in.
Interesting. Well, we said that was earlier, before Silver Spoons,
right?
Before
that, but I'm just saying, that's, again, one of the reasons that people had their eye on him.
Yes.
And he was also nominated for The Last Flight of Noah's Ark for something, for Young Actor Awards.
Right.
Little Lord Fauntleroy, like I said. He was also, though, nominated for the Stinker Awards. I don't know what those...
So
I think it's like the raspberries.
So what did you think of Silver Spoons?
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It is kind of a cheesy sitcom.
Yeah.
But, and some of the lines were kind of corny. I hate things with forced audience laughter. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But having said that, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Okay.
And if you said next, like, when we do season 2 of our podcast or season 3, if you were like, let's revisit Silver Spoons and just watch a couple regular episodes, I would look forward to it.
Okay, so what are you rating it?
I think I'm going to go with an 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm at an 8 on this.
Okay.
I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
So they had...
I like having the Christmas thing hit me.
So this is what I liked. I mentioned a few of these before. I really liked the cast. I think they had great chemistry. I think the writing was pretty well done. Mm-hmm. I think it was funny. You didn't like the forced laugh tracks, but I thought that I don't think they were necessary. I think there was natural humor to the show.
Yeah, there was.
Which I liked a lot too. In the premise. What I really liked about this is Ricky's first Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And the whole show premise is about him being new to being rich.
Yes.
Instead of going with just this huge, lavish, showering gifts on him with all this money, which they could have done.
They could have done that.
And it would have made sense with the show.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they switch it, and it's all about him and his dad giving to a family in need. And I really like that. We know it goes along with their characters because earlier in the show, his dad's bringing toys to the children's hospital. Mm-hmm. And so you see that his dad, while being kind of a child and a playboy, has a really good heart. And that has been continued in Ricky.
Yeah, and also that, in terms of secular stuff for Christmas, the message of being kind to others... Mm-hmm. And, basically being like Jesus would be, there is no hesitation on the part of either of these people. There is no judgment, even from the kid. And what did we see, again, to compare it to Small Wonder, which we both hated, what did we see in Small Wonder? There was a kid who was going on a trip, mm-hmm. right, for Thanksgiving.
And then one of the main character kids tries to scam his way into the trip.
Yeah, and has no compassion for this kid who comes from this broken home. Who's a latchkey. Yeah. And here, it's the complete opposite. You have two people who were talking... In the Reagan era, there are a lot of shows like this about... A lot of movies, too. About the disparities between the wealthy and the poor, because some of those gaps were becoming more apparent. All of the types of industry were changing, all of that. But there's no judgment at all. And it's very clear that Edward respects the fact that this guy doesn't want it to be a handout.
Yeah.
And even says to him, which we forgot to mention, but even says to him, we'll take it out of your first paycheck.
Yeah.
Right? Then cut, and probably not, because that
He's
pen's
not gonna
probably
do that.
expensive. But even if he took $20 just to make it look like. So the thing is that it's not just about giving and caring and being compassionate. It's also about understanding and having empathy for people when they're in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
And knowing too that this really can this type of thing could happen to anybody.
Right.
That you lose your job, that then you are struggling, maybe not the part where you're living in a really fake looking cave, but the rest of it, right? So I really did appreciate that and learning the lesson.
So because of all that, I'm also going to give it an 8.
Nice. All right.
So eight spoons. Let's try that again. 8 spoons out of 10.
8 out of 10 spoons for silver spoons.
Excellent.
2 on the nose. We should have done trades.
And 3 3/4 for ring pops.
Yeah, but at least we didn't cut anything apart like last time.
That's true.
We were like at half a Wookiee.
And half a Wookiee. That Wookiee got put out of its misery, though.
I have to tell you, too, that this was so enjoyable after we had to sit through that Star Wars thing.
Oh my gosh. It was nice to have a good show.
It really...
To just cleanse my brain.
Yeah, it really...
Like a chaser of some sort.
It really, really was. And coming up next, we don't have What Is Steve Willing to Watch? Because we've got our Christmas movie... Scrooged, and super looking forward to that. And then also, as we said before, we're going to have my brother on. We're going to play a game for our 50th.
For the 50th, which is going to wrap up season 1.
It's going to end season 1 with a bang.
We look forward to it.
All right.
Until next time.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Steve.
Thanks, everybody.